Hello, I'm back again and I'm shooting some more expired film from a bag of film that I got about a year ago. It's been a long journey to shoot the whole bag and I'm not even done yet. Today we're going to take a look at two rolls that were in the bag of Fujicolor Pro 160S. Fujicolor Pro was a line of professional color negative films from Japanese company Fujifilm, introduced in 2004 for weddings, portraits, fashion, and commercial photography. It originally comprised of four emulsions: Pro 160C, Pro 400H, Pro 800Z, and of course the one we're talking about today, Pro 160S. I have a roll of Fujicolor NPS 160 in the bag as well, but there's going to be a whole separate video about that roll. But it should be noted that the Pro film line was introduced to mark a replacement of the last of the NP series of films with the new 160 ISO emulsion adjusted to be finer grained. All of Fuji's Pro films incorporate Sigma fine grain technology, neutral color balance for improved skin tones, a fourth cyan layer for improved color rendition under fluorescent lighting, and they were optimized for scanning and single channel printing. Their colors were said to be generally cooler than their equivalent competitor Kodak Portra films. Pro 160C was discontinued in 2010, and Pro 160S was renamed Pro NS with no change to the emulsion, only to be discontinued in 2021. Considering both of these rolls say 160S, it's safe to say that we're looking at a minimum of 10 to 15 years of expiration, possibly longer if the rolls were purchased long before 2010. And the first thing I have to do is make sure that I'm shooting this film at the proper exposure. The general rule of thumb states that for every decade of expiration, you add one stop. Considering I have two rolls of this stuff, I'm going to shoot one roll as a bit of a test. But since I don't want to waste an entire roll just on bracketing, I'm going to bracket 3 photos, so 9 exposures of the test. And for the rest of the roll, I'm going to shoot at 100 ISO and simply just hope for the best. To be clear, I'm going to bracket entirely in the overexposure direction. There's no sense in seeing how this expired film holds up to underexposure. I'll set my ISO dial to 160, and then I'll take a frame, and then I'll take 2 more, adding a stop each time. That way, after I get the test roll developed and scanned, I can determine whether shooting at 100 ISO is enough. I have a sneaking suspicion it will be, but hey, I've been wrong before. So I'm going to load up my trusty Pentax K1000, and I'm going to go out and shoot.
12 seconds later.
I guess I had realized it before, but maybe I just forgot about it. So I have 2 rolls of the Pro 160S, right? And one of them looks totally normal. One of them looks fine, but one of them actually has some writing on it. One of them has a 10. Let me see if you can see that. Yeah, it has a 10 written on it. Now, I should clarify that I got this expired film from a guy that I knew at a company that I worked for that was a portrait photography company. And the fact that this has a 10 written on it, and also that the leader, I don't know if you'll be able to see this part, but the leader is kind of crinkled a little bit at the end, makes me think that maybe some of this film was exposed, if not all of it. And the fact that it has a 10 on it makes me think that they got to 10 exposures and then they rewound it. I'm not going to know until I test this whole thing out, and I might end up getting some double exposures on here, unwanted albeit, but yeah, so that kind of messes with my plan of bracketing 3 photos. Since I don't really know what's on here, I'm still going to attempt to bracket 3 photos and then shoot the rest of this at 100 ISO. But I just thought I'd bring it up because I am going to use this as my test roll, simply because I don't know what that 10 means, and we're going to find out what it means shortly. Yeah, I'm going to load this up, and yeah, I'll see you guys later. Alright, I'm back in the studio with my photos, a lot of which you've already seen, but we're going to run through them and just talk about them a little bit. I want to confess that for the first roll, I completely abandoned the idea of bracketing the exposures to find the correct ISO. It frankly just slipped my mind, and I shot both of the rolls at 100 ISO, which I gotta say worked like a charm. So let that just be some sort of half-assed lesson to just go with the flow sometimes. And also that number 10 that was written on the canister of the first roll just didn't mean anything whatsoever, I guess. Part of me was hoping that I was going to get some fun double exposures and see what someone else might have shot, but alas, didn't happen. So for the first roll I shot most of it at Greenwood Cemetery. I had such a great time shooting Greenwood Cemetery when I did my review of the Pentax 17. You can go check that video out, and I just knew that I had to go back and explore it some more. I still feel like I only really saw about 40% of the entire cemetery, so I'm definitely going to be going back in the future. I'm curious what it looks like in the wintertime. I'll keep that in mind. But yeah, overall I was very, very impressed with how this film held up. The grain is certainly a little bit more visible than I imagine it would be if it was a fresh roll, but honestly that was to be expected. The sharpness is still there, the vibrance is still there, especially in the greens. We know Fuji and greens go together like Mike and Ike's. Does anyone even eat Mike and Ike's? I actually don't even think I've ever had Mike and Ike's. So maybe that comparison doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We all know that Fuji and greens go together like peanut butter and chocolate. Yeah, that's a lot better. The photos here also just appear very cool overall. I don't believe there was much correction on my end to cool them off. That was just how the film naturally handled these scenes. Moving on to the second roll, we see some differences actually. For starters, I shot most of this roll indoors, and I think that lack of really consistent bright light was hurting this a little bit. For these portraits of my friend Amelia, who we all met in my infrared portraits video, we could really spot the grain coming through, and we're getting some of that confetti effect that we noticed when I shot Portrait 800. It's certainly interesting and adds some texture to the images. I just don't know if texture was what I was looking for when I shot these portraits. I do like what I was able to get from the photos of my cats. Those are just always a ton of fun. When we do go outdoors, we can see that smoothness and that sharpness, and the film just overall feels like it's getting the light that it actually needs. Scanning this expired film or any other film is going to matter quite a bit with the results that we're seeing. The lab that I go to, Exposure Therapy in Brooklyn, has a tiered system of scanning. They have your basic scans, your premium scans, etc., etc. Now, I tend to go with the basic scans because they suit my needs for the most part, but they actually recommend using premium scans for expired film. Oops. It basically just means that I get 1600 by 2400 pixel JPEG files instead of larger files like 2000 by 3000 TIFF files. Again, if you've shot your film and you realize that they're still looking a little strange even though you feel like you shot it at the right exposure, the scanning method is another place to look. All in all, shooting Fuji Pro 160S was an enlightening experience. I do think I could have been a little bit more diverse in the subject matter or experimented a little bit more, but I am happy with the results that I got. The biggest fear with all of this is that the photos are going to come out so unbelievably unusable that the whole thing wasn't worth it at all. And luckily, that didn't happen here. Now, here's hoping that when I shoot the roll of Fuji NPS 160, that doesn't happen as well, because that one is next in the rotation. I'm actually almost done with this bag of expired film that I got about a year ago. It took me about a year to shoot, but wow, yeah, it's really coming to a close. I have a few rolls of expired Portra 160 to shoot, as well as that Fuji NPS 160, as well as the hand-spooled mystery film, and that should be very exciting. Fingers crossed that actually turns into something. I hope you all have been enjoying the journey so far, and if you want to continue joining the journey and you haven't done so already, find that subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos are released on the channel. You could help support me by finding that join button and becoming a member. You could also support me by going to my print shop and consider buying a print of my work. It would really help. You could also help support me by watching this video that I made about a novel that I self-published earlier this year, and consider buying yourself a copy of it or buying it for a friend, because Christmas is right around the corner and it is the season of giving. Anyway, that's going to do it for me in this video, Fuji Pro 160S. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.